Hawkins stared at the gleaming silver briefcase perched on the polished mahogany table in front of him. The room was draped in subdued light, the kind that did little to banish the shadows that clung to the corners. It felt as if time had stopped the moment the briefcase had arrived. He had been expecting a regular briefing, a rundown of their next mission, but nothing prepared him for this. From where he sat, Wade could see the intricate design of the lock etched onto the lid, a delicate pattern of interlocking circles and sharp geometric lines. The craftsmanship was almost artistic. He leaned forward, captivated by it, momentarily forgetting the unease that had settled in his stomach. He wondered who could be bold enough to send something like this to them, and why. The absence of any markings other than the lock itself lent it an air of mystery that gave him chills. Around him, his team, composed of some of the best operatives in the business, sat in a semicircle, their expressions a mixture of intrigue, skepticism, and anticipation. The walls of the briefing room were adorned with maps, surveillance photos, and timelines of their previous missions, casting a backdrop that hinted at the gravity of their work. Cyrus Bull Jackson, his second-in-command, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his barrel chest. His thick beard bobbed slightly as he shook his head slowly, a frown deepening between his brows. "Looks like someone wants us to play cat and mouse," he rumbled, his resonant voice echoing through the silent room, making it feel even more claustrophobic. Knox Snake Patel, the team's expert sharpshooter, narrowed his piercing gaze at the briefcase. There was always a sharpness to his demeanor, a concentrated stillness that most would mistake for calm. With his lean frame and dark attire, he looked every bit the part of an urban warrior. "I don't like it," he said, his voice low and steady yet tinged with an undercurrent of concern. "We're not in the business of opening strange packages without knowing what's inside." Nash Doc Kumar, their team medic, rubbed the back of his neck as if trying to shake off tension. His curly hair was unkempt, the fatigue of countless hours without sleep evident in the dark circles under his eyes. "Agreed. This could be some kind of elaborate trap," he added, his tone resolute. Nash had seen too much over the years to trust anything at face value. "We've got to be cautious. No telling if there's a booby trap or some other kind of surprise lying in wait." Zain Zero Ali, their tech wizard, leaned closer to the briefcase, his keen eyes darting between the lock and his laptop, which emitted a faint glow in the dim room. He made a habit of talking to his machines as if they were sentient beings. "I can run a scan, see if there's any electronic signal emanating from it," he said, his hands already moving swiftly across his keyboard. "That might give us some clue about what we're dealing with." Atlas, their loyal German shepherd, remained by Wade's side, his massive frame radiating an aura of calm and loyalty. He seemed to sense the tension in the air, his ears twitching slightly as he remained vigilant. Wade absent-mindedly scratched behind Atlas's ears, finding solace in the dog's presence, even as his own heart raced with anticipation. Wade took in the diverse reactions of his team. Some were cautious, others curious. He felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. After years of working alongside these individuals, he recognized the strength of their camaraderie, but this situation felt different. Something truly unsettling was brewing beneath the surface. "All right," he finally said, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his expression earnest. "Let's be methodical. Cyrus, see if you can pick the lock without triggering any mechanisms. Knox, keep watch and cover the exits. We have no idea how much time we have before whoever sent this comes looking for it. Nash, have our medical gear ready. Zane, find out if there's a tracking device embedded in it. Atlas, stay close." The team jumped into action with practiced efficiency. Cyrus moved to the briefcase while Zane scrambled to connect his laptop to the briefcase using a sophisticated array of cables and sensors. Wade observed the interplay of nervous energy, Cyrus's large hands deftly working with a small set of tools while Zane manipulated the technology, churning out information in real time. With the faintest click, Cyrus broke the lock open, and a palpable wave of anticipation swept through the room. Wade lifted the lid slowly, revealing a small leather-bound folder nestled inside. It was worn and stained, suggesting it had seen better days. A heavy brass clasp held it shut, as if guarding the secrets it contained. As Wade's gaze fell on the words emblazoned on the folder, a shiver coursed down his spine. They read, Project Black Swan. Confidential. Eyes only. The urgency of the words snapped the team to attention. Wade felt a cascade of emotions surge. Apprehension, excitement, and above all, an unshakable curiosity. The phrase, Black Swan, sent alarm bells ringing in his mind. He had heard whispers about the project in various underground circles, described as a clandestine operation with potential implications that could alter the balance of power in the criminal underworld. But details had always been shrouded in secrecy. He glanced at his team, and he could see the collective realization dawning upon them, the implications settling like a stone in the pit of his stomach. They traded looks, each member's expression a mirror of the questions racing through Wade's mind. This was more than just a regular mission. This was the opportunity to uncover a hidden facet of the world they had been navigating for years. Look, Wade said, his voice steady. What we've stumbled upon could change everything. We need to approach this with caution and precision. Project Black Swan. It's not something we can take lightly. If we're going to dig deeper, we have to stick together and be prepared for anything. As he spoke, the reality of their situation began to crystallize. They weren't just operatives with a mission. They were part of something much larger, an unfolding narrative riddled with shadows and uncertainties. What do you think is in the folder? Nash asked, his brow furrowing in concentration. If it's so top secret, we're likely not going to like what we find. Then let's find out, Wade replied, pulling the folder from the briefcase with a sense of gravitas, as if he were lifting a sacred artifact from its resting place. As he unclasped it, a part of him was acutely aware that they were crossing a threshold from which there was no return. The contents of the folder spilled out before them. Maps with red markings, photographs of individuals whose expressions screamed urgency, and a series of reports that detailed various operations connected to a web of illegal activities spanning the globe. There were sketches of political figures, notes on financial transactions, and even diagrams of distribution routes for weapons and drugs. The project was an expansive multinational operation that connected powerful players across continents. Wade's heart dropped as he sifted through the documents, the enormity of what lay in front of them sinking in. Knox leaned closer, his eyes scanning the contents. We need to analyze this. If we can figure out who's behind this operation, we can potentially shut it down. Zane peered over Knox's shoulder, excitement glinting in his eyes as he analyzed the high-tech schematics laid out before them. This isn't just a criminal syndicate, he murmured. These are serious players. Government contracts, corporate espionage. This is big. As they pieced together the information, a sense of urgency enveloped the room. The stakes were higher than ever. A chill ran down Wade's spine, but the spark of determination ignited within him. They had come too far to turn back now. We need a plan, Wade said, bringing the team's focus back to the task at hand. First, we need to validate this information. Zero, can you trace these connections and find out where this web leads? Doc, prepare for any potential casualties. Bull, you and Knox should head out and do a little reconnaissance on some of these individuals. We need eyes on the ground. As discussions erupted, strategies formed, and adrenaline coursed through their veins, Wade strived to keep his own emotions in check. He knew what they were confronting was potentially perilous. The consequences could be beyond anything they had ever faced. But they were a team, a family in a sense, with an unyielding commitment to each other and a shared determination to see things through. The journey ahead was sure to be fraught with danger and peril, but the promise of unveiling the truth, of bringing to light the secrets hidden in shadows, fueled their purpose. With their mission set, they gathered their gear, adrenaline surging through them like electricity as they readied themselves for the next phase. As he slid the leather folder into his tactical bag, Wade couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They were on the cusp of something monumental, something that could change the landscape of everything they had dedicated their lives to fighting against. Stepping out of the makeshift briefing room, Wade inhaled deeply, the weight of their pending destiny looming overhead. Shadows danced around them, but their resolve was like a beacon, a guiding light pulling them into the unknown. With his trusted team by his side and the specter of Project Black Swan casting a long shadow over their next steps, he felt an exhilarating rush of determination swell within him. Whatever lay ahead, they were ready to confront it together. The mission had begun. As the door of the makeshift briefing room swung shut behind them, the atmosphere outside pulsed with urgency. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead illuminated the stark gray walls that seemed to close in as they moved. Wade led the charge, his heart racing as he felt the weight of the folder pressing against his side, each step ripe with potential. "All right, team," Wade called out, his voice steady and resolute. "We got a lead, and it's time to act on it. Zane, what are we looking at in terms of intel?" Zane hurriedly tapped away on his laptop, a focused expression etched on his face. He was their resident genius, a veritable whiz-kid who seemingly spoke the language of computers and gadgets like a native tongue. A cascade of data flowed across his screen, the bright glow reflecting off his glasses. "I'm narrowing down the names and connections from the documents. Based on this, I can unearth their digital footprints, bank accounts, communications, anything we can use to trace these individuals," Zane replied, chewing on the end of a pen as he worked. "It'll take a minute, but I should have something soon." Cyrus stepped next to Zane, arms crossed, his imposing shadow towering over the desk. "While you're digging into that, Knox and I will head out to the locations mentioned in the reports. We need eyes on these players to see the reality behind the documents." "Good call," Wade affirmed, feeling the adrenaline surging through him. He had seen Knox operate, cool, calm, and collected. He trusted that the two of them would gather valuable intel without drawing too much attention. "Just remember, stay discreet. We can't afford to spook anyone." Nash followed their lead, pulling out a medical kit from a nearby cabinet, assessing their gear with meticulous detail. "I'll prepare the med supplies. You never know when we might need them for a possible confrontation." "We're in deep waters here," he said, his tone serious, though his hands worked quickly as he organized supplies with precision. Wade turned his attention back to Zane. "Keep me updated on any crucial findings. We need all the information we can get before we make our next move." "Understood, boss," Zane nodded, his fingers still dancing across the keyboard. With his team preparing for action, Wade felt a momentary surge of pride. It wasn't just their individual skill sets that made them formidable. It was how they complemented one another, weaving a robust tapestry of expertise, loyalty, and courage. "Atlas, you're with me," Wade said, calling to his dog, whose ears perked up at the command. The loyal shepherd trotted over, ready and alert. As Wade gathered the necessary gear, a tactical vest, spare ammunition, maps, and their encrypted communications equipment, he took a deep breath. There was a weight in the pit of his stomach, a reminder of what they were diving into. He glanced at the leather-bound folder once more, its pages whispering secrets about a web of power that threatened to consume them. "Let's move," he commanded, stepping out into the bustling expanse of the underground facility they called home, where operatives came and went like shadows. They navigated through a series of dimly lit corridors, each step echoing against the cold concrete. Once in the designated car, an inconspicuous black SUV that blended seamlessly into the city's fabric, Knox slid into the passenger seat next to Wade. The muscles in his lean frame were coiled with tension, anticipation sparking in his eyes. Cyrus took the wheel while Atlas nestled in the back seat, watchful and keen. Cyrus revved the engine, glancing at Wade through the rearview mirror. "What do you think we're up against? Do you think we'll catch someone red-handed?" Wade weighed his response carefully. "It's hard to say. These individuals are likely well protected, and if they are involved in something as significant as Project Black Swan, they may have contingency plans in place. We must stay vigilant and collect as much intel as possible without getting too close." Knox leaned back into the seat, his gaze fixated outside the window as the city's lights blurred by. "I hope we get someone solid. An insider could be invaluable. We can't unravel this puzzle without understanding who is pulling the strings." "Exactly," Wade nodded. "But remember, we're not just observing. We need to be ready to adapt on the fly. If anything goes south, we need a way out." With that, the vehicle sliced through the vibrant city, each turn taking them deeper into a world shrouded in secrets. The skyline began to fade behind them as they ventured into the forgotten corners, back alleys and places where the shadows seemed to whisper of illicit dealings. Their first destination was a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of town, one that Zane had highlighted from their intel. It was rumored to be a hub for the project, a place where shady deals went down, largely unnoticed in the noise of urban life. As they approached, Wade noticed the tension manifesting in the air. The place was alive with unmarked vans and flickering lights, a stark contrast to the stillness outside. Cyrus parked a few blocks away, and the team prepared for their mission. "All right," Wade said, his voice clipped and serious. "Let's move in small groups. Knox, you and I will take point. Cyrus, you're on overwatch. Stay out of sight." Knox nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Got it. I'll keep my focus, just like always." Wade glanced at Atlas, who instinctively took a position by Wade's side, alert and ready. The dog could sense the shift in air. Things were about to get tense. Moving silently, they approached the warehouse, the sounds of muffled voices wafting through the air. Wade motioned for silence as they crept toward a broken window, peering through the grimy glass to assess the situation inside. Inside, figures moved about, shadowed by the dim lights. They appeared to be mid-discussion, engaged in what looked like an exchange of money for documents. Wade squinted, trying to catch a glimpse of anything that might provide clues. "There's our target," Knox whispered, his tone taut with focus. "That man in the striped suit. They seem to be getting something decidedly shady." Wade felt a surge of adrenaline. "You think he's connected to Project Black Swan?" Knox nodded slowly. "Could be. Looks like they're planning something big. If we get close enough, we might snag a conversation." "All right," Wade said, the decision made in the heat of the moment. "Let's move in. We have to capture anything that might link him further to the project." With swift precision, they skirted around the edge of the warehouse, Atlas leading the way as they approached a side door. As they neared their entry point, Wade's heart raced. This was what they had trained for, a live operation that would set the course for their investigation. Cyrus stayed at a distance, maintaining a watchful eye, as Wade pushed the door open just enough to slip inside without making a sound. The scent of oil and dust filled his lungs, a tangible reminder of the underbelly of this operation. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, the shadows only broken by harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. Wade, with Knox close behind him, moved silently through the cluttered space, avoiding obstacles and equipment that littered the floor. Not far from their position, the men in the striped suit continued their conversation, the urgency in their voices rising. Wade strained to hear snippets of their discussion, but the hushed tones mingled with the creaking of metal and the distant echo of industrial machinery. "We can't afford to let this slip," one of the men said, frustration lacing his words. "They're digging too deep, and if they uncover what we're really doing, we'll handle it. We have our resources," the man in the striped suit countered, his voice smooth yet sharp. "But we need to move fast. Black Swan cannot be compromised." Wade felt a chill creep down his spine. Their instincts had been right. These were players in a larger game, and the stakes were rising. "All right, we need to hear more," Wade hissed to Knox, his pulse quickening. They moved toward the side of a stack of crates, trying to find a vantage point that would give them a closer look. But as they inched nearer, an unexpected sound broke the tension. A sudden crash echoed through the warehouse as a heavy door swung open, the sound amplifying in the spacious room. "Get down!" Wade shouted, instinctively pulling Knox behind a crate just as a group of armed men burst in through the door, their demeanor asserting that they meant business. The moment felt surreal as time slowed, adrenaline flooded Wade's system, instinctively prepping him for what was to come. He exchanged a glance with Knox, conveying the urgency of the situation without words. Their mission had just turned volatile, and they had to adapt quickly to navigate the impending danger. "Looks like we're not the only ones interested in Black Swan," Knox murmured, a hint of admiration in his tone for the chaos unraveling before them. Before they had time to react further, an intense exchange commenced between the men inside the warehouse. Tension crackled in the air, and Wade could see weapons being drawn, a mixture of confusion and confrontation brewing. It was a precarious moment, a dance on the edge of violence. "Cyrus, we might need backup," Wade whispered into his communication device, his heart pounding as he kept his eyes trained on the men. "Copy that," Cyrus responded, but they could hear the undeniable sense of urgency in his voice. "Hold tight, I'm moving into position." Wade's resolve hardened. They were in deep now, no turning back. This was no longer just an observation mission. It had escalated into an operation of survival. "On my cue, we're going in," Wade whispered to Knox, who nodded, his eyes alight with determination. As they braced themselves, every muscle tensed, ready for what would surely be the confrontation that could alter everything. The men inside the warehouse continued their exchange, and Wade felt time slip away, each second accruing in significance as doubts and realizations clashed in his mind. They were entangled in a game much larger than themselves, but they had no choice but to play their part. Dawn would break soon, and with it, a new world of challenges and possibilities lay ahead. Together, they would peel back the layers of this shadowy operation they had stumbled upon, each revelation thrusting them deeper into the heart of Project Black Swan. As the first shots rang out, Wade knew one thing for certain: they needed to act swiftly, for in the world of shadows and secrets, hesitation could cost them everything. The time to unravel the mysteries unfolding before them had come, and they would face whatever came next together. The noise erupted like gunfire, shouts echoing through the cavernous warehouse, punctuated by the sharp reports of firearms. Wade felt his pulse thunder in his ears as he and Knox exchanged glances filled with resolute determination. There was no turning back now. They were in the eye of a whirlwind, and it was time to carve their path through chaos. "Let's make it count," Wade whispered, his voice steady in the face of impending danger. He could feel Atlas, ever by his side, shifting on his paws in anticipation. With synchronized precision, Wade and Knox angled their way around the crates, seeking cover as they crept toward the source of the violence. The shadows grew long and dark around them, providing a cloak that masked their presence. The confrontation intensified. Two factions were at odds, but the reason for their quarrel remained obscured in the thunder of shouted accusations and threat-laden words. "You think you can just walk in here and take what's ours?" bellowed a heavy-set man with a thick neck, brandishing a firearm that glinted beneath the fluorescent lights. His stance was aggressive, and his voice reverberated through the chamber. "I've got half a mind to." A bullet ricocheted off a metal pillar, sending a shower of sparks into the air, a vivid reminder that they were seconds away from full-scale violence. In that instant, Wade felt adrenaline coursing through him like fire. "Now!" Wade shouted, charging forward as he and Knox launched themselves into the fray. They moved with a focused urgency, ducking into the fray just as another shot rang out, a bullet narrowly missing Wade's shoulder. Wade watched as chaos unfurled before him, the two factions fracturing further as accusations flew, causing confusion and division in their ranks. Emotions were raw, and the tension crackled like electricity in the air. He spotted the man in the striped suit near the edge of the confrontation, his hands raised in what appeared to be a desperate plea for calm amid the bedlam. "Stop! We don't need to escalate this. But his voice was drowned out by another round of gunfire as one of the armed men screamed, "You think we're just going to let you walk away with the product? You're dead wrong." The standoff had devolved into a flurry of movement, and Wade seized the opportunity. "Knox, to the right," he barked, directing his partner's attention to a grouping of men who were distracted by the chaos, their backs turned. Without hesitation, Knox darted off, taking advantage of the chaos while Wade followed closely behind, slipping into the commotion. He had to get closer to that striped suit. The man had answers he needed, answers that could link this mayhem to Project Black Swan. They navigated through the darkened expanse, gunfire ringing in their ears, only to find themselves in the periphery of the melee, inching closer to the inner circle of chaos. Wade could almost taste the tension in the air, a metallic tang that hung heavy like impending rain. "Who the hell are you?" a voice snarled, a hooded figure turning to face Wade, eyes alight with suspicion. In a split-second decision, Wade lunged, tackling the man to the ground, the impact jarring as they collided with the cold cement floor. A glint of metal flashed from the man's waistband, and in a reflexive motion, Wade wrested the firearm from him, expertly twisting the man's wrist until he cried out in pain. "Not today," Wade said, his voice gruff but steady as adrenaline spiked his senses. He quickly moved to rejoin Knox, who was engaged in taking down another assailant. The distinct sound of Atlas barking erupted from the back, adding another layer of chaos. "Wade! We have to get that man!" Knox shouted, pointing toward the striped suit. It was slipping away into the shadows as the confusion swirled. Wade's gaze darted back to Knox. "Let's move, stay close." They bolted through the melee, weapons raised, moving with quick-footed agility as the fight surged around them, with fighters on both sides focusing on each other rather than the new threat. Wade's breath came in quick bursts, his heart pounding against the constraints of his vest. They cornered the man in the striped suit near a set of high stacks of boxes, his expression a mix of fear and defiance. You shouldn't have come here," he shouted, backing away until he was pressed against the cool metal of the stacked equipment. "We're not here to fight you. We need answers," Wade declared earnestly, raising his weapon but keeping it aimed more toward the ground than the suited man. "Answers?" The man's eyes darted between them, the flicker of something akin to panic crossing his face. "Why would I tell you anything? Because if you don't, whoever you're working for is going to take you down right alongside us." Knox growled, his tone low and threatening. "And trust us, they're not going to be gentle about it." "Enough talk," a voice snarled from behind them. Wade's heart sank as he recognized one of the armed men who had entered first, a hulking figure framed in the doorway. He waved his weapon toward Wade and Knox, preparing to aim. "Get away from him," the man commanded, forcing Wade and Knox to pivot, their backs against the wall they had just cornered the suited man against. "Now's not the time for games," Wade replied, adrenaline fizzling into raw nerves as he prepared for a potential gunfight. "You really want to make this worse? Tragic accidents can happen," the man retorted with a sinister smile. "Get out of the way or I'll shoot." Atlas, sensing the danger, growled ferociously, his teeth bared as he crouched low. Wade's instincts flared, his heart pounded. A scenario loomed just a breath away, and they had to choose. Suddenly, the warehouse door burst open. A team of additional operatives, flashing brilliant badges and armed with rifles, streamed in. "FBI, put your weapons down," they shouted, moving in with a highly coordinated precision that turned the tide of the confrontation. Chaos ensued as everyone dropped their weapons. The men who had been fighting scattered, taking advantage of the confusion to escape. "Out!" the lead agent commanded, leveling his weapon at Wade and Knox, who stood shoulder to shoulder, prepared for whatever came next. "Hands where I can see them." Wade's breath caught. "We're not here to cause trouble. We're investigating Project Black Swan. We don't have time for this," the agent barked, eyes narrowed. "Get on the ground. Now." The man in the striped suit took advantage of the confusion to slip away into the shadows, disappearing before Wade could react. "Damn it!" Wade shouted, frustration boiling to the surface. "Go!" Knox urged, trying to break free of the agents moving forward. "I said get down," another agent shouted, this one pulling a zip tie from his belt. "Wade, we have to stick together." Knox yelled over the rising chaos, tension threading every word. Wade's mind raced, adrenaline refining his thoughts. They hadn't come this far just to be locked down by the authorities. There had to be a way. "Fine. But you need to listen to us," Wade said, throwing up his hands, trying to play the diplomat even as his heart thundered. "Stop," came an unexpected voice. An older agent stepped forward, his expression firm yet measured. He raised a hand to the others, who paused, weapons still leveled but confusion creeping into their eyes. "Wait, let's hear them out." Wade seized the moment, forcing himself to take a deep breath. "We're after information related to Project Black Swan. We believe it connects to a larger criminal syndicate that could have serious repercussions for national security. We were just trying to—" "Look, we don't have time for this," the old agent replied, his sharp gaze assessing them. "You three need to come with us. There's something big at play." Wade felt a rush of uncertainty as he exchanged glances with Knox and Atlas. "You mean, you're not taking us in?" "Not yet," the older agent replied, his jaw tightening. "But you'll need to tell me everything. We may still have time to track down that man in the striped suit before this gets out of control." Wade's heart raced. Could they really turn this around? "Okay, we'll cooperate. Just give us a chance to lay it out," Wade said, moving closer, urgency threading his words. As the tension melted slightly, Knox stepped beside Wade, determination lighting his eyes. They were still in the midst of a dangerous game, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could harness the chaos to their advantage. As the dust began to settle, and the atmosphere transformed from chaotic to tense yet controlled, one thing was certain: the stakes had escalated, and they were closer than ever to unraveling the web of Project Black Swan. The conspiracy loomed, dark and intricate, and they would find a way to cut through the shadows. With one path forward, they accelerated into the unknown, determined to chase down the truth before it slipped through their fingers like smoke. The warehouse fell into a tentative silence, punctuated only by the distant echoes of footsteps and the eerie hum of the overhead lights. Agents were still milling about, ensuring the area was secure, while the older agent, who had interjected moments earlier, gestured for Wade, Knox, and Atlas to follow him. "Let's move somewhere we can have a conversation without the circus," he said, beckoning them towards the exit. Wade felt a mix of relief and trepidation wash over him. They had just dodged a bullet, literally and figuratively, but the gravity of their situation weighed heavily. Knox fell into step beside him, his expression unreadable. Atlas, ever his loyal companion, trailed beside Wade, his sleek form moving with an air of vigilance. Once outside, they were ushered into a black SUV parked hastily at the side. The agent climbed in first, and Wade, Knox, and Atlas followed suit, the weight of uncertainty thick in the air. The SUV's tinted windows offered some anonymity as they pulled away from the warehouse, leaving behind chaos and confusion. "Agent Reynolds," the newcomer said, introducing himself as he maneuvered through the night streets. "I'm part of a task force investigating Project Black Swan. We don't have much time, so I need you to be straight with me. What do you know?" "Not much, really," Wade said, his hands sweating in his lap. "Just what we pieced together from our undercover work. We have reason to believe that this project is a front for something much larger. Human trafficking, illicit trade, and perhaps even something involving government secrets." Agent Reynolds narrowed his eyes, processing their words carefully. "Government secrets? Now we're delving into dangerous territory. You realize the implications of what you're suggesting?" More than anyone, Knox interjected, leaning forward. "We wouldn't be here if we hadn't seen the strings being pulled behind the scenes. We're not operating in some isolated unit. This project has tentacles reaching far and wide. We need to act before the situation deteriorates further." Reynolds weighed their words, silence stretching as the SUV maneuvered through narrow streets. Finally he spoke, his voice low and firm. "We believe you. Our investigation has shed light on certain individuals associated with Project Black Swan, but we've yet to uncover the full extent of their operations. It's strong and deeply entrenched. If you have intel, now is the time to share it." Wade exchanged a glance with Knox, a shared understanding flickering between them. "We were tailing a man in a striped suit. We didn't catch his name, but he was in the warehouse tonight, overseeing a deal that could link him directly to higher powers at play. Did you get a chance to listen to what they were saying?" Reynolds pressed, his focus unyielding. Wade nodded, recollecting the tension that had unfolded. He mentioned something about not letting the project slip, that they were digging too deep. It sounded like they were trying to contain something, like a secret was at risk. Reynolds' brows knotted with interest. Containment is essential, particularly if the operation involves sensitive information. We've had leads pointing to information being buried to protect those involved. But we need proof. "Proof is what we were after before the distraction," Knox said, urgency bleeding into his voice. "What are your resources like? Is there a way we can work together on this?" "Potentially," Reynolds replied, signaling to the driver to head toward a nearby safe house. "But first, let's get you out of sight and debrief properly. No one can know that you were connected to our operation. Not yet. An asset like you could completely change our strategy." "An asset?" Wade echoed, still processing the unexpected shift in their circumstances. "We're just trying to get to the truth before it's buried under the rubble of this operation." Reynolds nodded, respect glimmering in his eyes. "And that's precisely what makes you valuable. This is bigger than any one person or group. We're dealing with individuals willing to risk lives and cross ethical lines to protect whatever secrets they hold." As the SUV pulled to a stop outside a dimly lit safe house, Wade felt a flicker of hope amidst the gravity of the situation. This was the moment they had been working towards, a chance to shift the momentum, to gather intel that could lead to uncovering the core of the conspiracy. Stepping out into the cool night air, Wade noticed several agents standing guard, weapons holstered but eyes keen. Reynolds led them inside, an air of authority surrounding him as they stepped into the sparse interior, filled with basic furniture and an expansive map of the city plastered on one wall, dotted with colorful pins. "This will be your base of operations for now," Reynolds explained, gesturing toward the map. "We'll need to gather everything you know and piece it together. What intel do you have regarding the people involved in this project?" Knox took a deep breath, ready to share their findings. "We believe several businesses may be fronts for operations tied to Black Swan. We started investigating associations with suspected officials marked in our documents, but those avenues have proven dangerous. We've had eyes on the warehouse for weeks, but the lead we were given about the man in the striped suit was a breakthrough." Reynolds nodded, his expression one of thoughtful consideration. "Let's break it down. Any tangible evidence? Contacts? Written communications?" Wade's mind raced, focusing on crucial elements. "We managed to recover a few documents from the warehouse. There could be coded messages, items we began decrypting before we had to abandon ship." "Good. Where are those documents now?" Reynolds pressed, urgency threading his words. "They're at our base. We could access them remotely," Wade replied, adrenaline coursing through him again. "Just give us a moment to log in, and we can share everything with you." "Let's do it. Time is our enemy and every second counts," Reynolds said, determination evident. "We'll provide you with devices to communicate securely. If we're going to dismantle this network, every piece of information is vital." The team huddled tight, their focus sharp as Wade pulled out his laptop. Knox hovered next to him, their fingers flying across the keyboard as they accessed the repository of intel they had collected over the months, layers of documents revealing the tangled web they had begun to unearth. Suddenly, Wade paused as he noticed a file marked Urgent. Operations Update. "What's this?" he mused, clicking on the document. The screen flickered to life, spilling open a secured file. Knox leaned in, squinting at the screen. "Is that